Hello everyone, and welcome to the next session in the Retail Strategy and Planning series. My name is Andrew Gaffney. I'm Editorial Director with Retail Touchpoints, and really glad you could join us for this next session. As e-commerce has exploded over the past decade, there's been a great focus on customer acquisition costs. Most e-commerce brands know this religiously, what it costs to acquire a customer. What we've seen over the past year or two is that that's expanding to look really more at the cost of the lifetime value of a customer, or what the value is for different customers, and being smarter about that. We've got a great session coming up next. It will be on the payoff of post-purchase engagement. We're going to look at benchmarks and best practices for driving repeat purchases. The series is hosted by Retail Touchpoints. If you're not already a subscriber to Retail Touchpoints, we encourage you to join more than 50,000 of your peers in the retail executive community. You'll get access to our daily content from our digital newsletter and daily updates to our website. Also, you'll get active interest with our social communities on Twitter and LinkedIn, which we encourage you to check out. There's some good conversations going on there as well. Quick reminder, in addition to the webinar series, we do host a physical event May 6th through 8th in New York City. The Retail Innovation Conference has been growing quite a bit, and we address topics like this. So keep an eye out for updates on that. We've got a couple of our first keynotes already announced. Also, you'll have an opportunity to win from our prize pack by registering and attending different sessions over the course of this week. So I encourage you to do that. Also share it with your peers. You'll have a chance to win Starbucks gift cards as well as free passes to the Retail Innovation Conference. This session is going to be about 30 minutes in duration. We encourage you to go ahead and type in any questions that you have. You can do that right within the On24 question and answer tab. You can also access social links from Twitter right within the On24 dashboard, and there's also a resource center where you can download related resources to this topic. One of the frequently asked questions we get is, yes, this presentation is being recorded. All registrants will get a link to go back and review it and share it with their peers. I mentioned the topic today. We're going to be joined by Eric Keating. Eric is the VP of Marketing at Zayas and is really versed on this topic. I've heard him address it, so you're in for some good insights here. Eric has over 10 years of experience helping top consumer brands grow by improving their understanding of customer behavior. Prior to joining Zayas, he was VP of SaaS division at Kantar Miller Brown, where he productized and scaled research solutions to maximize customer satisfaction and profitability. Eric, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Happy to be here.
All right, Eric's going to be sharing a lot of good data insights with us and some great use cases, but I did want to just set the stage with some really important data around how important this topic is. Just some research from Bain. The average repeat customer spends 67% more in the first 31 to 36 months of the relationship than they do in the first 0 to 6 months. So I think instinctively a lot of e-commerce brands really focus on, again, winning that customer the first time, that initial conversion, as opposed to thinking about the lifetime value of the customer. So we're going to have some great insights to address how you can build campaigns better, information messaging with context. So I'll show some other data points now quickly. Retail brands are starting to think about that, investments in just looking at new customer acquisition versus retention. Another stat is 82% of companies agree that retention is cheaper to execute than acquisition. That's something from new e-consultancy research. So I think we're really seeing a change of the tide. Another driver, another factor, which Eric's going to talk more about, is the reality of growing influence of marketplaces. So you spend a lot of time, attention, money to get customers' eyeballs to your site for the first time, and hopefully you get them to convert and make a purchase. The reality that second time is they may go back and make that purchase through a marketplace, and that likelihood is increasing. This is some research from Salesforce.com that they recently did, and as you can see from the yellow to black, that first time customer tends to be directly through a brand website or the channel. When they look at repeat purchases, you can see the yellow starts to spike much higher. So I think it's another challenge that all e-commerce brands need to be thinking about and really putting more emphasis on how they're building campaigns and communicating with customers ongoing, and that second purchase really being critical. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to some other more stats and some great use cases. So Eric, I'll let you get us started.
All right, thanks a lot, Andrew. Yeah, so obviously a lot is changing, and I'll talk a little bit about how that's changing and what you can do about it. So wanted to start off talking about e-commerce specifically. I mean, it's the most the changes in e-commerce are clearly the most impactful changes happening right now. So just want to talk about how massive and impressive this space is. I mean, there's really never been a better time. Like in 2017. Overall retail e-commerce sales surpassed $335 billion US, and that was up from $186 billion just 5 years ago in 2012. The global market is over $2.3 trillion US and growing, and there's even more room to grow because e-commerce represented just 9% of overall US retail sales. And e-commerce stores are also easier than ever to create. So easy that Shopify, one of the most popular e-commerce platforms out there, even published an article that they titled "How to Start an E-commerce Business Without Spending Any Money." Right? So clearly things are easy, and people are feeling encouraged. And even in addition to that, more and more manufacturers are opting to skip wholesalers and launch direct-to-consumer stores for the first time. There's really no sign of any of that slowing down. So it's for that reason. Those reasons, really, which I'll talk about on the next slide, that e-commerce is more competitive than ever. On average, 80% of first-time purchasers won't make a second purchase from the same brand, and that's one of my favorite stats to talk about. It's a bit discouraging, but it's also a huge opportunity, right? And you really can hardly blame consumers for not coming back and being loyal. It's a shopper's market. And of course, what would this presentation be without a mention of Amazon, right? Amazon's dramatically changed the landscape, most significantly around price sensitivity and consumer expectations. So whereas discount-focused strategies used to be pretty reliable for creating repeat business, these days it's nearly impossible to compete on price, especially if price is your number one differentiator. Amazon's also set consumer expectations higher than ever around personalization and experience. So while they're certainly not best in class at it, the ubiquity of Amazon has really changed, I think, turned customer personalization and experience from strategic advantages that they used to be to now basic expectations. All of this adds up to a change in the world that's undeniable right now. 5-10 years ago, repeat purchase could kind of be assumed, right? Like consumers were loyal to brands because they had fewer options, and discounts were a proven way to keep customers coming back. But now we're in the super price-sensitive market, and consumers have more options than ever across millions of e-commerce sites and retailers. So brands can't assume that repeat purchase anymore. They can't assume it's a given or rely on discounts to grow their business. They have to engineer repeat purchases in a meaningful, scientific way. How do you succeed in a hyper-competitive, price-sensitive, consumer-driven market? That's the question here. And I will say that it is focus, and it's focus on repeat purchases, getting that repeat purchase rate up, and building your brand. And the reason is because purely it makes financial sense to do so. I'll throw a few stats at you here. So 5 times more, it costs 5 times more to acquire a new customer than it does to drive a repeat purchase. Right? Let that sink in for a second. Now, to add to that, existing customers are spending 10 times more, or they're 10 times more likely to make a purchase than new customers. And also consider that, this sounds similar to a stat that Andrew said a few minutes ago, but it's another 67% stat, which is returning customers spend, on average, 67% more than first-time customers. So I think this is all starting to come together and make sense, right? So it should go without saying that these brands, the ones that drive customer loyalty, are the ones that are going to win. And I like to think about it as if purchases are an assumed finite resource, unless you grow the number of customers coming back to your store to buy, those purchases are happening elsewhere. So it's really a battle for those purchases. It's that battle that's going to determine the success of your business. Now, of course, the e-commerce pie, if you will, is growing. So this isn't an exact science, but the general logic of that kind of pie mentality remains valid. It's not an easy thing to do. Right? Too many e-commerce leaders are focused on acquisition of new customers, even if they have a major leaky bucket problem. And that's because acquisition is simpler. But they forget that to build a sustainable, long-term business, you need to keep those new customers coming back and making repeat purchases. And to do that really takes building a strong brand. You see, great brands, they don't compete on price with Amazon. They don't just sell products either, right? They focus on delivering value to the customer at every single engagement and creating an outstanding customer experience. And I like to say that, now, like I mentioned earlier, the repeat purchase must be engineered. And that's what these brands are doing, right? They're very intelligent about what each customer wants, how and why they shop, et cetera. And they use that intelligence to power hyper-personalized experiences. And those personalized experiences make customers feel special, and they make them feel connected to your brand, and they make them want to come back and buy. And when brands can, to really develop that emotional connection with their audiences, that's the foundation for loyalty and repeat purchases. So the brands that are really able to engineer that repeat purchase today are dominating their market. So there are a few here I'm going to talk about, brands like Sephora, Stitch Fix, and Warby Parker. If I talk about Stitch Fix, so excuse me. So according to their company description, Stitch Fix is the #1 women and men's personal styling service tailored to your tastes, needs, and lifestyle. So they match customers with personalized selections of clothing, shoes, accessories, etc. And they do this using a combination of data science and human stylists to curate those items that they're recommending to their customers. And to sum it up, Stitch Fix is customizing and personalizing the style experience for each individual buyer, and that's what keeps them coming back, right? Like Amazon is not doing that; they can't do that. They're in no position to. So this is a unique value that they're delivering to their customers. I think we all know Sephora, right? So about a $5 billion company selling beauty and cosmetic products on and offline. And they utilize data from their Beauty Insider program, which is kind of like their loyalty program, to personalize communications and recommend products relevant to each individual shopper. This is a baseline for what you need to be doing today, right? At least be personalizing your communications. And just make sure you're doing it based on a complete view of your customer's activity. More interestingly, I think about Sephora is they also do a pretty amazing job linking online and offline shopping experiences. So one example of the way they do this is they have beacons in their stores which send notifications when the shopper is near an item that they left in their digital shopping cart. Right? That's a super cool approach that it really lets the customer know that Sephora is going to go the extra mile to deliver that outstanding customer experience. So Warby Parker, last example I'll give here. So while selling primarily online, Warby Parker also has a number of physical showrooms around the U.S. Right? I used to work right across the street from one on Newbury Street in Boston. Their home try-on program is one of their biggest differentiators and drivers of growth early on. So for those of you who haven't experienced that personally, it basically allows customers to choose 5 frames from the website, and then they get those shipped to their house. They can try them on at home for 5 days for no cost, and then you choose the frame you like. So it's a really unique experience. Again, not something that Amazon is likely to do or able to do. But they've also created an experience online which customers can upload a photo of themselves to warbyparker.com and then put the frames on their face virtually. Right. So now the thing about Warby Parker is that they have a dedicated customer experience and consumer insights teams that mine data and then use algorithms to innovate constantly. And those insights are coming from those teams. They're driving A/B testing and personalization of offers and messaging. So talk about custom experiences. Talk about using a data-driven approach. Warby Parker is just an outstanding example. So I think the key. What all these brands have in common, what's really at the core of building their brands and generating great customer loyalty, it really all comes down to understanding customers and then using that understanding to ensure they're creating really high value engagements at every turn. So, I think given that customer data, customer understanding is really the key. The first step to making this happen for your brand is gathering your customer data, right? So let's start with the most obvious form of customer data, the email address. So once you're able to attribute an email address to a shopper, you've got a unique identifier for that individual moving forward, and that's really key. So I think most brands right now are doing a decent job of collecting email addresses, but if you're not, you got to start there, right? Or get some kind of unique identifier you can use to say, when this person is shopping on my site, I know it's them, right? Or when they make a purchase, I know it's the same person. So email addresses are great because it's the most common and versatile identifier. They're used everywhere. And in this case, the newly collected email address that you gather is going to be the key to stitching together an individual user's activity across all marketing channels and devices. And that's going to give you the most complete view of your customer, or a 360-degree view, as a lot of people say. You'll also be in a fantastic spot to start attributing any anonymous data you've gathered to an actual person. So if you've got the right systems in place, tracking behavior of an anonymous shopper, understanding that this person's shopped in a couple of different product categories, they've added something to a cart, and then they give you their email address, so then you're able to say that this person, Eric@Vegas.com, shopped in this category, et cetera. So that ability to append previously anonymous data to this new email address is also going to be really important for you, especially when you're trying to personalize welcome campaigns that come out right away. Understanding your customers really is a prerequisite to engineering the repeat purchase. And what does that mean? I think at a high level, understanding their preferences, their motivations, their tendencies, and you need to be able to answer questions like, what types of actions do they take across channels and devices? What are their personal preferences and demographics? Ultimately, how should you personalize your marketing to meet their individual needs? So you start by collecting at least a few types of data. So demographic data, you start with the basics like age, location, gender, along with email, of course. Behavioral data, so like how do customers behave when they interact with your brand? Include data mined from like shopping cart abandonment, browse abandonment, cross-sell, upsell campaigns, et cetera. And this requires that using cookies or the like, and then attributing that behavior associated with that cookie to a known profile. I could go down that path all day, but really the key here is you want to understand what they're doing when they're interacting with your brand, and then purchasing behavior, of course. So what are they buying? How much are they spending? Do they tend to respond to discounts or not? So those types of questions you need to be able to answer, and it requires that you're collecting this type of data. And once you've got all that customer data, we're just going to talk about a few ways you can put that to use. First, before we get into the meat of it, I need to start by making sure we're all clear on one thing. So batch and blast messaging strategies, it's dead, right? So if you're doing it, stop. Even if you have minimal data on your customers, there's an opportunity for you to begin creating customer segments based on commonalities. So super basic example, if your brand sells men's and women's clothing, right? Create two customer segments, men and women. Another basic example is to segment your customers by life cycle stage. So there's zero reason to be treating new customers the same as you would long-time loyal customers. Get your customers into groups. These customers have made 0 purchases. These customers have made 4, right? And you want to talk to them differently. More advanced example would be, if you know the product categories your customers have shopped in, use that data to target promotions more specifically. So instead of one big sale email to everybody, send a message about a sale on pants to those customers who have shown an interest in pants, and then a sale on shoes to those customers who have shown an interest in shoes. Now, it's just going to make all of your messaging more relevant, make your customers feel like you know them better, and it's going to be more effective because you're not going to be spamming customers every time there's a sale on every product. And when you're able to understand why and how a customer shops, you're going to be in a better position to influence their future behavior. So all the data you have on an individual really should be used to personalize your communications and deliver a better overall customer experience. It's a fact pretty much across the board that the best performing campaigns are those that are personalized and tailored to your buyers. There's a stat that Marketo put out recently. 79% of consumers say they're only likely to engage with an offer if it's been personalized to reflect previous interactions the consumer has had with the brand. So that's That's a huge chunk of people who are not going to engage with your brand unless you personalize your communications with them. So I pulled up a few basic examples of personalization. There are really a million ways to personalize your communications. In this case, they're all email. That's certainly not the only channel that you can personalize. Your website experience, push messages, web or mobile, etc. But they're all examples of using what you know about a customer's behavior to then deliver content relevant to them. So on the outside left and right, you have emails from Pinterest and Amazon, and those both leverage customer browsing behavior to populate some kind of suggestions. In the Pinterest example, it's new topics. In the Amazon example, it's other products you may love. But my favorite is in the middle. That's from Birchbox. They take a similar technical approach, but they take the opportunity to infuse some of their brand by calling out exactly what they're doing. Right? So they lead off the email and they say, let's get personal. They say, we peeked at your sample and purchase history and then used our supercomputers to find these great offers tailored just for you. Right? Like, customers know marketers are doing this stuff, and they like it generally. So why not take that lighthearted and acknowledging approach to it? Right? If anything, it helps build more trust in the brand-consumer relationship. It builds a relationship, right? You joke around with your friends. This is what they're doing with their customers. The last thing I want to talk about is optimizing for that repeat purchase rate. So, I think the measurement or attribution of this stuff is really sorely undervalued. I don't understand customers who say, or brands who say, our goal is to increase repeat purchase rate, but they're not measuring it, right? Specifically, I think it's just ask a simple question. If you're not able to measure a campaign's impact on repeat purchase rate, then how are you making decisions about your next campaign, right? We've talked about why repeat purchases are so important and why it makes sense that repeat purchase should be your key metric really for your business. So if you can, start measuring your existing campaigns and their ability to drive repeat purchases. So just like you're measuring, your email opens and clicks, ultimately conversions, most people can measure that now. Measure their ability to drive this repeat purchase rate. What we've heard from our customers is that engineering the repeat purchase means something different to every business. And that's because every business is different, and every customer of every business is different. So what may work for one brand or individual customer may not work for another. Right? And that's why driving repeat purchases it's not about following a specific playbook, but it's a science of understanding your customers and then responding to those needs over time, however that may play out. But for sake of leaving today's presentation with some actionable takeaways, I'm going to just talk about two campaigns that most businesses should probably implement today. The first being just a basic post-purchase campaign. And there are lots of, the theme of this whole webinar is post-purchase, right? How do you get somebody after they make a first purchase to make a second, third, a fourth, et cetera. But this specific campaign, so post-purchase thank you campaigns, right? They're a fantastic example of letting your shoppers know that you're grateful for their business. It's going to, again, help build that relationship. More importantly, they can help you sustain that customer's interest in your brand and more easily encourage that next purchase, because post-purchase emails increase revenue up to 13 times more than typical promotional campaigns. So these are when customers are engaged, they're happy, they're excited about their purchase they just made. So taking advantage of that emotion and connection with your brand right away. It's really about the timeliness of it. So within these types of emails, you can opt to include a discount. You could solicit feedback in the form of a survey, or you could just say thank you. Regardless, personalizing the message in these communications to capitalize on those moments is just critical. So if you're not doing a post-purchase campaign, let's get one off the ground today or tomorrow. In this example right here, it's from Brooklinen. The founders are basically just showing appreciation for their customers. They're just going back to fostering that brand loyalty and talking to their customers as if they're part of the company themselves. And so I really like this one. And the next is, new and improved newsletters, like what they call it. So you might be thinking, I'm obviously already sending newsletters, right? Everybody does, I think most businesses do, right? But just because it's a newsletter doesn't mean it can't be personalized for an individual. So after your broad newsletter copy that's saying, whatever you use your newsletter for, start showcasing some products that the individual recently viewed, for example. If they have anything in their shopping cart, call that out. Maybe they've made a purchase recently. Show them complementary products or recommendations based on that purchase. The idea here is that just because it's a regular newsletter doesn't mean it has to be impersonal or made for everybody. Newsletters are, for most businesses, one of the most reliable drivers of businesses, of revenue, because of how large the audience is for these campaigns. So adding in personalized dynamic content to a newsletter can make a huge impact on your repeat purchase rate. And I could go on and on about campaigns to help drive that repeat purchase rate up. I think these two are great to start. And the theme overall about personalization and working that into everything you're doing. Those are the keys. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Andrew, and I think we'll run through some Q&A.
Really good stuff, Eric. Good examples and good insights. So hopefully the audience has some good stuff to chew on. We got some good questions. Remind everyone that you can go ahead and type them in right into the Q&A tab if you didn't already do that. We'll get to as many of these as we can, and if we don't get to your question, I'm going to ask Eric to follow up with you directly. All right, first question, Eric, from Haley. She said, any other campaign types that you can share? She noted that you did the thank you and newsletter campaign. Any other campaign type suggestions that you'd offer?
Well, yeah, actually, so there's one that we talk about a lot. So like I said, they can really take any form depending on your individual business and the customers of your business. There are a million ways that these campaigns can play out. I like to talk about the really specific, unique ones. So I think I'll talk about that, and hopefully it's inspiration for other types of campaigns you can run. So one of our clients created a campaign that's really based on that deep understanding of what their customers are doing and what their preferences are. So this customer in particular sells golf apparel. They're selling multiple brands like Under Armour, Adidas, all the big ones, and they've got multiple categories. They've got men's, women's, kids, etc. So lots of products and product categories to choose from, and they're using our solution anyway to really deliver advanced purchase intent campaigns. So that means if a customer views 2 or more items from the same brand category, so let's just say Adidas men's shirts, for example, and then doesn't purchase anything else from that category or doesn't end up making a purchase from that category at all, they're going to receive a campaign showing them the top products from that brand category they showed interest in. So it's a combination of e-commerce data, product data, customer behavior, all pulled together. It's a really nice example of having a unified data set because otherwise it's kind of difficult to implement. But this campaign in particular drives now 15% of their overall email revenue. So simply taking information about what the customer was looking at, and then because they didn't make a purchase, sending them a reminder about that product category with the top selling products. Now it's driving 15% of their revenue overall. So that's just a little inspiration for how you can kind of get creative with these types of campaigns.
Okay, great. Question from Mark. You talked about personalization. He said it's an area they're struggling with, in terms of what kind of data to use, how to structure a campaign, how to integrate personalization across channels. Any recommendations on where to get started or how to tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, personalization, like I said, it can take a lot of different forms and span channels. I think the key to get started with it is having good data. All right. I think I talked about that a lot during the presentation. But get your customer's email address, bring some technology in house, or build some technology that can then track that consumer's behavior and attribute it to that email address. And once you do that, I think the first thing I would prioritize is I think that newsletter example that I talked about a few minutes ago would be my number one. So you're probably already sending newsletters. So now work some of that personalized content into your newsletters. It's a really easy place to start. To just take the newsletter you're already running, add in a section that says, here are your recently viewed products, or here are products you've left in your cart. That's going to move the needle right away. I can almost guarantee it.
Okay, awesome. Question from Dawn. She said they're trying to build some things to address, repeat customers, loyal customers over time. Any recommendations on how to build campaigns or target that kind of goal? So I would I'd start to do some research on life cycle marketing. If you look up life cycle marketing, you'll find some interesting examples. I think what you want to do is first segment your customers into life cycle stages. So you've got shoppers with no purchases. So these are people who maybe entered their email address on your site but never end up buying anything. You've got people who've made a purchase one time, repeat purchasers, and then like a loyal customers category. So if you're treating each of those customer segments in a strategic way, so the first group you're trying to get to make their first purchase, right? That may be a different marketing approach than the group who you're trying to get to make their third or fourth purchase. And once you do that, you can start to think about, okay, I'm trying to move customers toward loyalty. Once they reach a certain stage, and once they've made their second purchase, I'm going to introduce this loyalty campaign, right? Or maybe you could even do it by lifetime value, right? So these customers, once they hit $200 in spend, I want to trigger like a special loyal customer code or something like that, right? So I think the key here, the short answer is, make sure you can understand where your customers are in their life cycle and treat them accordingly. And if you have a nice strategy for each stage of that life cycle, you're going to be a lot more effective at driving customers toward loyalty. All right, we're going to take one more. That should bring us in a little over the 30-minute mark that we were targeting. Appreciate all the time and answers here, Eric. Melissa actually asked you focused on repeat purchase as an important repeat purchase rate as an important metric. She asked if you've seen any sort of benchmarks or averages of what a good RPR looks like, or any other insight you could share around that.
Yeah, well, it depends on your industry, right? You've got, depending on the product category, you're not going to have as high a repeat purchase rate in luxury goods on average as you would with more commoditized products, right? But I think what we say on average is that about 20% of first-time buyers will make a second purchase. But again, that varies across industries. That's kind of a decent benchmark for an average type of business. We've seen customers get up as high as 35-40%, and in specialty categories we've seen it even higher. But I think what you probably want to be shooting for to start, again, this is a broad statement, but get up to 25-30%. Start to strive for that. If you're hovering around 20%, it's totally doable. We've seen customers double their repeat purchase rate just by introducing some basic lifecycle campaigns. So, I think that's the best benchmark I can give on rate without going into industry specific.
Okay. All right, that's awesome. I appreciate all your time and insights. There are a couple other questions we didn't get to, but I will send those to Eric and ask him to follow up with you folks directly. Eric, I want to thank you guys. Those are really good specific examples and some good actionable insights that hopefully our audience can take away. So thanks again for all your time.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
A reminder to everybody, the next session in the series is going to be on navigating the path to purchase, so good related topic. It's talking about leveraging data to optimize customer engagement, September 19th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in for that, and again, you'll have chances to win from the prize box more sessions you tune into. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you on the next session.